Have you ever heard of the Neverhood? It's a 1997 point-and-click adventure with a unique claymation style, and it's the other well-known video game work from the cartoonist Douglas Steenapel, the author being of course the first two Earthbound Jim titles. That's all that I know about it, but apparently it's gotten a cult classic status over the years. Unfortunately, modern audiences are unable to reliably experience it because its copyrights are held in Electronic Arts office dungeons. Therefore, the next best solution was to create a spiritual successor with the help of Kickstarter backers, and thus the world was created in 2015 by Armikrog. To a tepid reception. Only 57% on the aggravator site Metacritic, 60% positives on Steam, and 3 out of 5 stars on Good Old Games. Well, that doesn't sound that bad, right? So maybe there can be found some proper entertainment out of this.
As other creatives, we have creative director Edward Schofield and designer/animation director Michael Francis Dietz, who have done art and animation not only for all Mr. Steenapel-led projects, but also for such license fare as School Spot, Aladdin and The Jungle Book, and later separately for Star Wars 3 Revenge of the Sith and Wall-E, just to name a few. As you can see from this material, the creative team's years of animation experience is evident from smooth movements and visuals, and they are easily the game's best aspect. Well, mostly smooth, but let's get to the story as the premise is explained in one fell swoop in the form of a song that really needs better enunciation. To summarize, the planet of Ixen is having an energy crisis and the rare mineral plutonium found from neighboring planet Spyro 5 is needed to solve it. 2 travelers have been already sent but never returned, so the last of the 3 brothers Tomino, played by Michael J. Nelson of Mystery Science Theater 3000 fame, is the last hope, along with his pet dog? Big Pig, played by industry veteran Rob Paulsen. But wouldn't you know it, Tomino crashes his ship cutting right to the exact same video that was featured in the game's Kickstarter campaign 2 years earlier.
Now, let's get a look at the hull. Yeah, this does not look good.
I don't think our part insurance is gonna cover this. Our deductible is nuts too.
Beak Pig, look at that. What do you make of this guy?
Ooh, an omelet.
Acting in general is lukewarmly fine, but the problem is that the actors don't have much to work with because these characters don't have much, well, character. Tomino is an everyman, and I get that these types of persons have the least amount of defining traits, but Big Pig, who I think is supposed to be the comic relief, doesn't clearly lean into it. And even the rest of the characters only make brief appearances here and there. My point is that the characterization is severely lacking, and I get that it can't be Earthworm Jim style funny zaniness in order not to clash with the overall tone, but some more spice would have needed to better fit the surreal aesthetics.
Our dynamic duo escapes from a hungry fuzzball monster into the nearest safe place that happens to be the titular fortress Armikrog. The first thing players may notice is the simplification of typical point-and-click mechanics as there is no inventory. Tomino stores everything he finds, even living things, and I'll get to that in a minute, to his fellow stomachs and automatically takes the right item out when needed. This however doesn't mean that puzzles will be easy because they favor pattern recognition as their main gimmick. Whenever they are too hard has been more opinion dividing, and with some of them, like was the case with this planet arranging one that is randomized, I'm just not good in this type of puzzle. I spent 40 minutes on it until it just magically clicked. Usually the problem is that the game isn't good at giving information about its mechanics, and the game's hint system can be too cryptic. Personally though, I didn't have as much trouble with brain teasers as I expected, what with some towards the end. There is however lots of backtracking and repetition of the same puzzle types. especially these door opening blocks that are luckily the easiest ones in the conundrum pantheon.
I think the criticism towards the obtuseness of the puzzles is exaggerated. For example, this puzzle where you have to collect a lullaby sequence in order to stop a baby from crying, and that is also repeated multiple times, has been accused of being utterly random, but for a musically talented person such as myself, it wasn't a big issue at all. Oh yeah, let's talk about that baby that Tominot casually stored in his innards.
Eventually our Clapper finds a baby with neither parent in sight, and because the only word the baby knows is P, as in the letter, not the... never mind. That's what she's now named as. Then the narrative progression halts for the next 60% of the game in order to focus puzzling through 3 of the 4 towers of the fortress. This lasts until the end of the 3rd tower where Tominot's crazy brother Voknot, played by John Heder, comes to remind us that, oh yeah, the plot still exists. Don't get me wrong, I think the story itself is interesting, but it's not well told. There are these octopus creatures who chronicle the history of the fortress in made-up language, but the imagery is clear enough to get some hints on what became of these parents. The kicker is that towards the end, Tominot does find a way to translate them, thus clarifying everything in one swoop, and you need to backtrack and watch them all if you want to solve the penultimate puzzle. For a fuller lore dump, there is this wall that tells all of what Peace's parents wanted to achieve with Armikrog, and apparently reading the whole thing takes a while. But during my playthrough I didn't realize you have to drag with the mouse to see more text.
Added to that, at least one reviewer has said that the Armikrog story is a complete rehash of the Neverhoods, but I haven't played that game so I can't verify the nuances. This game's shortcomings both in narrative and mechanics can be partly explained with small budget. Yeah, turns out that about $975,000 wasn't quite enough to do final polishings, and many scenes scream had to be cut or condensed in order to save costs. These final polishings apparently include technical shortcomings as well, and they are fascinating.
These include animation not looping properly, sound lines not playing properly, music disappearing completely, and that one time I swear I saved my game properly in a previous file, but it didn't, thus having to recomplete a puzzle and making me create a new save each time just to be sure. That being said, some technical crudeness like echoey voice lines oddly add to the crafted vibe of the environments, and the most amateurish points are easy to bear with the Western jazz soundtrack by Terry Scott Taylor, another returning talent from the Neverhood.
Because I haven't played its spiritual predecessor, I can't comment on how well Armikrog resembles it, but based on its own merits, if nothing else, it has the right style. However, it was left half-baked in a cheap oven.
Visuals and audio, at least when the game's technical core that was made from dry Play-Doh doesn't mess with them, are smooth and memorable, creating a unique style that I can't recall seeing in any other contemporary work. However, while the story had potential, underdeveloped characters can't carry the lore on their shoulders. Puzzles fared overall better than their reputation may suggest, but there was lots of repetition and annoying backtracking. Therefore, you can get more enjoyment out of this game if you treat it as a surreal 3 to 5 hour mood piece, and don't mind it tearing from its seams sometimes.
What comes to everyone's artistic endeavors, Mr. Tenable has focused on self-published comics, including continuation to Earthworm Jim, and apparently he has tried recently to get a new game based on it off the ground. As an exclusive to the infamous Intellivision Amigos, so good luck with that. Mr. Scofield and Deeds, on the other hand, have most recently collaborated in artistic design and character art on the revival of Battletoads in 2020. Seems like it was received okay. Armikrog is also okay. So much so in fact that it doesn't deserve to be in my worst 100 list, and therefore in this episode there's no new entries to it. That can sometimes happen in this show, but it's not like I can contact a digital storefront and be all like, hey, the game that I recently bought from you wasn't bad enough. Can I have a refund, please?
You want a song with your name, and it's your name, and it's your name, and a Kickstart song with your name, and it's I wrote you a song with your name. Hope you like a song with your name, and I'm hoping that I can make your day with it. Ever on you, ever stay with it. If you play guitar, you can play with it. How about a roll the drum for Ether 101 and Timor, nicknamed Limo?